Hey, welcome to the Single Man Podcast. I'm Carlton French here with my good friend Trey Cox. Trey was my first friend when I came back to church in 2021.
I'm a ripe old age of 32 years old. Grew up in Lexington area of Kentucky. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old. I had always thought that I was a big shot growing up. Ego. You know what I mean? I always thought I was better than where I was from. I always thought that I was meant to do more. I made it. I can do whatever I want. Downloaded the dating apps. I got on Tinder. I got on Bumble. If it's Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, I was going to party. I was going to drink. I was going to go out. I was going to try to get with girls. You know, I did it all. Went to Bonnaroo 4 times. Drinking, sex, pornography, drugs. If I didn't want to be lonely, I would have considered myself agnostic. Nothing's working. It all leads to the same thing. I felt like I was in a hole looking up. Talk about torture. Trey, will you come to church with me, please? Listen, dude, I appreciate you offering, but I don't think I'm ready for that. Why do you keep asking me? He said something I'll never forget. He goes, because when I get to heaven, I want you to be there with me. I needed that. I started to notice the improvements in my life. I started to feel like the top of the hole was closer. It's crazy to think about how much love and joy I have in my life now. God's love is real. It almost brings me to tears because it's just something that I chased and could never get. And just knowing now how simple it is.
Challenge yourself constantly. You have to be a little bit patient.
I felt like I was in a hole looking up.
The whole idea is you have to become content in singleness.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't fired off some Instagram DMs.
The word dating is not mentioned in the Bible.
I dedicated my life at Tomorrow World to Jesus.
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton French, a 29-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey, welcome to the Single Man Podcast. I'm Carlton French here with my good friend Trey Cox. Trey, how you doing tonight, man?
Hanging in there, man.
Yeah?
Yep. Another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. And appreciate everyone tuning in to listen to this week's episode. I'm excited to have Trey on and have him share some of his story and his dating history and just encourage all the listeners out there. So, Trey, you want to explain kind of how we first met and how we know each other?
I'd love to. So, yeah, I had been in lockdowns and COVID when I had first moved to Atlanta, which I'm sure I'll talk more about that. But I saw advertisements for a canopy thing, like a social group through Buckhead Church, loosely, through Buckhead Church.
Yeah.
And I went to the first one. It was like on a Saturday at a brewery where we just kind of sat and played games and hanging out. And I remember I saw you earlier in the day. And then as we were about to leave, I saw you with that dog that you were babysitting. And I think we just briefly chatted, if I remember correctly, and then didn't see you for a while. I want to say a handful of months. And when Buckhead reopened, I went to the first service that was on that Sunday. And you were there. And we ended up linking up and talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man.
I know. It was cool.
Great memory.
Yeah. Super in depth, huh?
Yeah. So funny, Trey was my first friend when I basically came back to church in 2021. Didn't know that we'd become friends when we met at that canopy event, which was like it was like a social club kind of affiliated with church.
I think that's a good way
back
to
when I
describe it,
was first kind of dipping my toe back in, and then I saw you at the first service where we crossed paths at Buckhead Church it was like the first week that the church reopened, and I went and didn't know anybody, but then I happened to run into you. So yeah, crazy. That was like 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago. And then it went from me, you, and 2 other people sitting together to a whole lot of people sitting together. It happened very quickly.
Yeah. So you want to give a little background on yourself, Trey? Like how old you are and
Sure.
where you grew up and
Yeah.
your relationship status?
I'm a ripe old age of 32 years old. I'll be 33 shortly-ish.
Yeah.
Grew up in Lexington area of Kentucky. A lot more country than Atlanta, but not as country as I may sound, but I digress. Lived in Kentucky up until I was 27, 28, because I did undergrad, grad school, all in the same city where I grew up, because there's a college there that I went to. So never really planned to leave. My first job outside of grad school was in Tennessee. Loved Tennessee, didn't like the job. Decided to take a risk on a new job in Atlanta, and I've been here for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did you move here?
I moved to Atlanta in summer of 2019
Okay.
in July. Yeah. Didn't know a soul.
How
have
old,
no
how old
family.
were you then?
I was 28.
28. Okay.
Yeah. 28 or 29. Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to
Nice.
remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you do now, like for work and
Yeah.
your relationship status?
Yeah. So I work for, I'll talk about that first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I work for an insurance company, a commercial insurance company, no personal lines. Not to get too deep in the insurance jargon, but I'm a risk management consultant. So I go out and help insured accounts with handling their risk, whether that's for their vehicles or their employees, on the construction job. So anything like that. Love it. It's great career. I'm very happy with it. I am not single. I have been in a relationship for 2 years, almost to the day, in a couple weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And we'll be engaged soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Yeah. You definitely had no idea.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so technically you're still single,
I'm not married.
right?
Yes.
It's no
No
rings.
ring. Yeah. No ring.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
And then any like hobbies or what do you do for fun when you're not, working and whatnot?
Yeah. I love to travel. I mean, I'd say traveling is my number one passion. I got to go to Europe about a year and a half ago for the first time. I went by myself. Went to London, then Amsterdam, and then Spain, went to Madrid. And it was just, I've always loved traveling. And if it's not going overseas, then you can catch me at the beach, Yeah. Yeah, I'm a beach bum.
Salt life.
Honestly, salt life. Atlanta would be perfect if it was on the coast.
Right.
But it's not far.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Atlanta needs an ocean.
I mean, we need an ocean. If you can make that happen, God,
Right.
I'll be very happy. But I like to fish, like movies, like going to church.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
my small group.
There you go. What about this last week? What's been your favorite and least favorite part about life recently?
I'd say the least favorite, I'll start with that, was I do have to travel for work sometimes, and I had to go stay in Tennessee for a few days. Love the work I do in Tennessee, just don't like staying in hotels and driving and, not a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Favorite, I definitely would say I finally got to see Andy Stanley in person, like actually doing a sermon, which was really nice at Browns Bridge Church. I had never seen him do an actual sermon in person. So that was a really, really big highlight of my week, and just getting some time to relax. I mean, I was just so exhausted from all the traveling, so
Yeah.
it was good to just chill out and watch some Jeopardy.
What about tonight? Tonight's not a high. I was
Hanging out with you is always a high for me, Carlton. And not to mention, those Grindhouse burgers were pretty good.
So Trey, let's jump into your story and how you grew up.
Okay. Yeah. So grew up in Kentucky, lived in the Lexington area, specifically Richmond. It's a little suburb of Lexington. It's all central, the bluegrass region, I guess is what I would call it.
Yeah.
And grew up there, more of a rural lifestyle. I like to go fishing, shoot stuff with pellet guns, get leeches in my legs in creeks, whatever. I like to be outside. I come from a really big family. Not my immediate, I have 2 brothers, but my mom was one of 9. So tons of first cousins. Loved being with my family all the time. You know, in terms of faith, we had a Christian background, but it never was in practice. Like, we didn't go to church on a consistent basis. We didn't talk about it really. It was never a conversation, you know, how we're growing in our faith. That was never something we talked about.
Yeah.
I think there was moments when it became more of a conversation and something that my family wanted to focus on. Like, oddly enough, whenever The Passion of the Christ came out, I remember that my dad and stepmother had went to watch it. And after that, we went to church for like 2 months straight.
Oh, wow, there you go.
But yeah, so that happened. And then, yeah, I mean, really just normal kid, really caught up in the things most kids get caught up in, culture, wanting to be popular, wanting to be something that you're not. You know, it's just kind of, a lot of people are born into that, I feel like. And then, you know, finished high school, went to college right where I grew up. I mean, literally my house was 5 minutes from my college. The house I grew up in was 5 minutes from the campus that I went to for undergrad and grad school. So I was in the same town, the same city, from birth to age 27.
Okay.
Yeah. Crazy to think about now, that because I never really wanted to leave. That was never a part of the plan. I wanted to stay, like I said, family guy. I wanted to be around them, and I had to get work. So, you know, after grad school, I moved, like I said, to Tennessee, and then been in Atlanta.
Right. Okay. And where did that kind of like Christian upbringing even come from? Like, just someone in your family? Do you even remember like when you were first even told about church or Jesus?
Yeah, for sure. My granny was, you know, very active in church growing up. And then when she got into her older age, you know, she wasn't able to go, but it was still something that she was very passionate about. Always made it very clear that she wanted me to be a part of a church, wanted me to gain that relationship with God. Maybe didn't push me as hard as she could have, because she didn't, you know, she's just a lovely person and didn't want to, but definitely, you know, that's where it started, I think. And I think she could see that I needed it, and that I needed to turn, you know, back to God, and tried to push that on me. So when she passed away, whenever I was in grad school, you know, that's when a lot of the inner thoughts started happening about finding that relationship or getting back to it with God. Yeah.
So did you have it before at any point, would you say? Or it was always just like, oh, I'm a Christian, if someone asked you, but like, you know, no one could have.
Yes and no, I would say. I'd say for the majority of the time, if you had asked me if I was a Christian, I would have told you yes. If you would have asked me what that meant, I would have had no answer for you. Nothing at all. And even, you know, I'd go as far to say for a period of time, I would have considered myself agnostic, because I never was, in my head at the time, I was too smart to say that I knew if there was a God or not. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
But for a long time, I questioned whether you could know or not. So that, I guess, would have made me agnostic for a few years for sure.
Yeah. So what was it that kind of like started you, I guess, exploring again, or, you know, getting plugged in when you moved to Atlanta? Like, how did that all kind of come about?
I'd say there's many things that started it. I know the first thing I would say that started it was just the bottomless pit that is seeking out what you want all the time. You know, whether that's drinking, sex, pornography, drugs, going out all the time, you know, just all that indulgence and constant seeking of approval from others, getting validation through means that have it's no means to an end. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing worthwhile that comes from it. And it's almost like I got to a point where over time I felt like I was in a hole looking up at the sun. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't see anything but mud walls around me, but I wanted to get out and I didn't know how. And all I knew was if it was Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, I was going to party. I was going to drink. I was going to go out. I was going to try to get with girls. I was going to do all these things that what I thought would give me purpose, would give me a sense of peace, would make me feel like I was cool, like I was somebody worth knowing, like I was somebody worth being around.
Right.
And I think over time, I started to notice that never happens. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much you get or don't get, there's no meaning or purpose that can come from it. And that definitely started it. Because like I said, I was in grad school until I was 27. You know, I was on the long graduation route.
The 5-year plan.
Yeah, more than 5. But I mean, so I had plenty of time, you know, of very low expectations in terms of what I was doing. You know, I mean, I was in school for a long time. So I had plenty of opportunities to party and things like that. And then, you know, moving to Tennessee was an eye-opener because I was working with people that were very open about their faith. You know, it was more deep into the Bible Belt, I would say. I mean, Kentucky's definitely the Bible Belt. It's a southern state. I don't care what anybody ever says. But so I think I met a few people that I worked with in Tennessee that would ask me, "Hey, Trey, do you want to come to church with me?" And of course, my first response was like, "Why would you think I'd want to go to church with you?"
Yeah.
I have given you not one reason for you to think that that'd be something I'm interested in. But they would ask me anyway. And if I said no, I'd get "Are you sure?"
Really?
And then after that, they'd be graceful and they'd be like, "Well, if you change your mind, let me know." And I'm like, it started these inner monologues with myself, like, you know, why do they want me to come? Like, what's the reason? I don't understand. Like, why did they think that it'd be good for me? I had no idea. And finally, I remember I had a conversation with, his name's Eric. I won't say his last name, but I worked in manufacturing at the time, big automotive manufacturer. I was a safety specialist. And we were standing in this warehouse building. It was brand new, beautiful warehouse building. We're just kind of standing there, you know, cutting up, just talking. And he asked me again, "Hey, Trey, you want to come to my church?" He went to a very small, I don't know the denomination, but it was a smaller church. And he asked me, he was like, "Trey, will you come to church with me, please?" And I was like, "Man, you're my friend. Like me and him would lift weights together at lunch. Like we were buddies. Like I like this guy, really, really good guy."
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, "Listen, dude, like I appreciate you offering, but I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't have any interest. I don't want to do that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why do you keep asking me?" I finally wanted to ask him. I was like, "Why do you keep asking me?" And he said something I'll never forget. He goes, "Because when I get to heaven, I want you to be there with me."
Wow.
And I got home after work that day and I was like, man, like it's not for any selfish reason. Like he genuinely just he thinks it's good for me. It would be good for me. And that started the domino effect, I would say.
So did you go to church with them?
I did not. So I did not only because I did not like that job. So during this whole time, I mean, after 3 months of being there, I knew that I didn't want to work there anymore. So I was already looking for a different job.
Okay.
And I'd gotten another job. This all happened, you know, in the late spring, early summer time period. And then I left in the first week of July that year.
Okay.
So I never really had an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was gone a few weeks later.
So then you move to Atlanta and you get the new job. You're in the biggest city you've ever been in. And you talked about you're in this mud pit or something, like all this stuff was around you and you couldn't find your way out. How did you like eventually get out or even realize you were in the mud pit?
For sure. Yeah. So I moved to Atlanta, like I said, summer of 2019. We all know what happened shortly after that, right? So COVID happened 8 months after I moved here.
Yeah.
So when I first moved here, I had always thought that I was a big shot growing up. Ego. You know what I mean? I always thought I was better than where I was from. I always thought that I was meant to do more. You know what I mean? Like nasty, egotistical way of thinking. Just we're in that culture.
Sure.
We're supposed to think that way, or at least I thought we were. So when I got here, I mean, I look around, I'm like, I made it. Like this is what I've been building toward.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. If I can go to an NBA game, I can go to.
Nobody knows me.
Nobody, not a soul knows me. I moved here, no family, no friends, nothing, just a job and a kid from Kentucky that had big dreams. So I wanted to live my life and I wanted to do things that at the time I thought would make me happy. And, then it started. So I, downloaded the dating apps. I got on Tinder, I got on Bumble, all these things, and not being picky. I just, I wanted to meet people. I didn't want to be lonely.
Yeah.
So, so started playing kickball, which if you ever move to a city and you don't know anybody, play kickball. It's awesome. And I mean that. But, so I met people through that. A lot of like ex-SEC grads, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
they opened up doors for me to party and do things like that. And I indulged. And then over time, over the course of some time, COVID happened. And talk about torture. Living in a city where you finally get to a city where all the opportunity in the world is, and you've been dreaming about it. I've wanted to live in a city since I was a kid.
Right.
I finally get here, and then I can't do anything. I'm locked in an apartment, in a 750 square foot apartment.
Right.
For what felt like, a whole year. You know what I mean? But it turned out that year would be one of the biggest blessings that I've ever received. Because I got to see how I was feeling from all these things I was chasing and how they were bringing me nothing. And even though I couldn't go out and get them, I could get that inner peace and that meaning from God. So I started listening to sermons online, whether that was, and at the time I didn't know anything about the churches in the area.
Yeah.
So, I'm just listening to random, Methodist, just different denominations.
You're just like at your apartment, like nothing to do. Okay, let me just flip on a sermon or something like on YouTube or.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started thinking about my buddy Eric from back in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I was like, let's give this a try. Let's listen to some stuff. Granny would have wanted it anyway. Something's missing from my heart. So let's just try it. Let's just see. Because at this point, I'm burnt out. I'm 28 years old.
Yeah.
Nothing's working. Like it all leads to the same thing. So I start listening to sermons. Some I like, some I don't. And then finally, I watch a video with Andy and some of his old sermons. I was like, man, this guy's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started watching services online, and then it all cascaded and started to make sense.
Okay. Sweet, man.
I know.
So then you showed up to Buckhead Church when it reopened in June of 2021.
Yes, but before that, I was impatient. I wanted to see about getting, into the church atmosphere environment. Before that, because I just couldn't wait. I was sick of being alone, so that's when I found Canopy and registered for a couple of them.
Was that your first one? Was that game night at the brewery?
First time.
Yeah.
You met me the very first day.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
And so you start coming to, Canopy, and you're watching sermons online, and church reopens, you start going to church. I guess what kept you coming, or like why was that not another thing you were just like, all right, tried this, didn't fulfill what I was looking for?
I had never had a relationship with God on a personal level before. So I didn't realize how impactful it can be whenever you work on it. And I think, once I started going to church and learning about the Bible and building that relationship, I started to feel it. And I started to notice the improvements in my life. And I was talking about feeling like I was in a hole. I started to feel like the top of the hole was closer than it was prior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. And I think having excellent, amazing friends like you made such an impact, because, I'm all for watching church online and working on that yourself, but the impact of community in your church, there's nothing else like it. So getting to come on Sundays and see you and see Autumn and see all these people that I really cared about, they were my friends, and it made it so much more natural.
Okay. Thanks, man. That's nice.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we were just figuring it out kind of together at the same time, Like, that was when I had first came back to church, and people have listened to my story. And if you haven't, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast. But yeah, like, I started coming to Buckhead Church, and literally you were my first friend. Like, I remember you from that canopy thing. And then we just like started to sit together.
Yeah. And I think you were my first friend. You were one of my first friends in Atlanta, period. I'd say you were definitely one of my first 2 or 3 close friends in Atlanta. And you showed me there is a different caliber of friend. You can have people in your life that aren't going to call you just on Friday and Saturday. Hey man, you trying to go drink?
Yeah.
You would call me at any time to check on me, see how I'm doing. You would push me. Hey, what are you doing to further your relationship with God? What are you doing? And I needed that, and still need that. And we all do. And I think that's what opened my eyes to, because if you would have asked me, and no offense, but prior to joining church and getting into, back into faith, all the people I would have met in that, I would have been like, nah, I don't want to be their friend.
Right.
On that.
Right.
Because I had that misconstrued idea of what a friend was supposed to be. I thought friends were drinking buddies. And that's just not it.
Yeah. Right. That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing and and being one of my best friends too. So I guess for everyone listening, what would you say is like the biggest difference about your life now? So now you're 32, you were 28 when you moved to Atlanta. You tried to figure out, the church thing. Where are you at kind of now with your faith, and, what's like the biggest difference, would you say?
I'm hungover less. I'd say that's the main one. Yeah, I don't, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not chasing that feeling anymore. Yeah. Like I don't have to drink until I'm out of it anymore. You know what I mean? That urge is gone. And it didn't happen because I attended AA meetings or anything like that, or not that I ever, needed that, but I'm just saying it's because I get fulfillment on a daily basis from God. I have that relationship. I'm dating a girl, and hopefully soon to be married to a girl that, encourages me every day to pursue my relationship with God. It brings me an inner peace that I never knew was possible. And it's not even, the whole, I'm going to go to, even if I die today, I'll go to heaven. It's not even that. Yeah. It's just knowing that I'm putting forth an effort to be more like Jesus every single day. Am I going to fall short on that? Probably. We all will. But just knowing that I'm trying, it brings me so much inner joy and peace that I've never experienced in my life before. And I think knowing that I have that, it almost brings me to tears, because it's just something that I chased and could never get. And just knowing now how simple it is, how simple and beautiful it can be. Right.
What would you say for someone that's listening? Like, I've been there. Like, I've done the drugs, I've done the sex, I've done the drinking. Maybe I should try this out. Sounds like it's worked for this guy, Trey. Like, how would you even recommend someone get started with something like that?
When it comes to the other life that I lived, I did it all. I went to Bonnaroo 4 times. I had these, long spring break week. Like, I did it all. And I know that I'm not the only one that gets that inkling, that little hair on the back of your neck stick up that's like, this isn't it. This is really it. Yeah, this isn't it. Like, there's something missing here. And if you get that inkling, don't ignore it. I would really say don't ignore it. That's God talking to you. I know you don't see it yet. And I know, and if you're not a Christian, it can come off as corny.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like I was there. I was that cool kid, like I get it. But once you do get there and realize that it's not, that it's real, that's when the change can start happening. I would also say, the big thing I would say is pornography is the worst thing that's ever happened to men. I would argue the access, whatever it is, like ease of access, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to men in our generation. And if you want to make your life better, you stop, cut it out. That's another thing that I would really stress for young men.
Is that something like you've been able to do and you feel like it's been beneficial for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that it can take time. It's not, you hop the fence, then you're done. It's one of those things, especially because, we live in a society where you can access it when you're a kid. You know what I mean? When you're 12 or whatever, on a phone or on an iPad or whatever.
Right.
And it's hard to kick that habit, but I promise you there's greener grass on the other side if you can kick that habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet, man. What about advice you'd have for, younger Trey? Like if you could talk to 25-year-old Trey, 27, 28, first day in Atlanta Trey, you are able to teleport back to him. Like, what would you tell him?
If I could talk to myself at 18, I would tell myself, focus, stop. There's plenty of shiny, flashy things around you that can take up your time. Whether that's a sweet video game you just got, that pretty girl in your English 101 class, whatever it is, all these things can take your energy away from you. 18-year-old Trey, focus. Stop looking at it. Focus on your schoolwork. I got way more student debt than I needed just because I wasn't focusing when I was in college. I mean, I finished, but at what cost? The cost of my bank account.
Yeah.
So
literally,
I would tell 18-year-old Trey that. I would tell 26-year-old Trey that's about to finish grad school, listen to the voices in your head. Okay, let me reword that. Listen to that little voice in the back of your head. Whenever you feel like something's not right.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel like, hey, there's got to be something else, or, I'm not getting what I think I'm getting out of this. Listen to that voice, because it's not made up. Like that is a voice really trying to tell you something. I would really tell Trey to listen to that voice. Trey, first in Atlanta, I would tell him, you don't got to try so hard, man. It's not, you're buying things you don't need to impress people you don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to try so hard. The people that really care about you and that will go out of their way for you, like my girlfriend, you don't got to impress them, man. You just got to be yourself. You just got to, be kind.
Love that, man. That's great.
Thank you.
I hope that encourages someone listening. I'm sure it will. Like, that's so relatable and real. So let's jump into a little bit on your dating past and this being the Single Man podcast, talking a little bit about guys' stories when it comes to dating and encouragement for single men out there. What's been different about how you've dated since coming to know Jesus?
I mean, it's completely different. I mean, it's apples to oranges at this point. I mean, I dated a girl in high school and college. Like we went, like I said, college, same city as my high school. So we met in high school and dated in college, both. Yeah. 5 years. That's a lot of time when you're 20 years old. Yeah. 5 years at 21 is almost a quarter of your life. Yeah. So at the time, alluding to other, what I've said, on repeat, is I was always chasing something. I was always looking for something. That love that I got from her, I didn't have anywhere else. And I latched onto it. So, when we broke up, it was like tragic, for me, because I had never had that. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old. They didn't like each other really. So no, very complicated situation. Lived with step parents that didn't really like me either. Home growing up was not good. So I latched onto that love from her.
The first time you like felt, oh, okay, like this person really cares about me.
Exactly. Other than like my grandma and just, my dad did, I'm not saying my parents didn't, but just that real passionate love. I'd never felt that.
Yeah.
But we were doing anything with reckless abandon, just whatever we wanted to do. And it didn't bring us any joy. It made, with the things we were doing, like, sex and other things, it complicates your relationship. It doesn't make it simpler. And I think Andy Stanley, talks about that and says something kind of the same way. It's like sex before marriage just makes things more complicated. And it does. That's just the truth.
What do you mean? Like, how does it make it more complicated?
It opens up a world of emotions and feelings that are hard to cope with.
Yeah.
Especially I think that's why we're called upon to wait until marriage to have sex. Is because it opens up a lot of emotions and feelings that we're supposed to, experience with our wife and someone that we're committed to and that we love on a deep level, under God,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say dating now is completely different for me. I mean, we go to church every Sunday together. It's not something that I don't feel bad about it. Like I wake up and I'm excited to go. And she, if I woke up on a Sunday and I was like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like it. She would be like, baby, let's go. You know what I mean? And I do the same. And it's one of those things like she pushes me to seek out my relationship with God. I've never had a girlfriend that would do that. But that's because I met and wanted to meet someone that has that same, value system.
Right.
So, in that way, it's completely different. And I just can't, it's crazy to think about how much love and joy I have in my life now.
Yeah.
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 How about when you met the girl you're dating now, you're close to proposing. How'd you first meet her? Like what kind of environment? Maybe should single men be looking forward to meet girls that are the same value system or, good people that you're talking about?
Yeah. And it's funny because the place where I met her is no different than any place I've ever met any other girl. You could call it a bar.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a bar. She would call it a bar to make me mad. But I wouldn't call it a bar. And it's funny because I know you'll like this story because you're, a star of it. I didn't want to do anything that night. I was tired. It was a Saturday. I was exhausted. You called me and you're like, let's go to this place. It's called the Painted Duck in Atlanta. And you're like, let's go. We have some friends that are going. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then, of course, Carlton said, come on, let's go. And I said, fine. I was like, I'm not getting dressed up nice, though. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I just threw on some jeans and a hoodie, kind of like the one I'm wearing now. Like it was cold, it was around my birthday, so wintertime. And we get there and, I think didn't we go to a brewery beforehand or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to a brewery and like, that's the thing is like, you can still enjoy life. You just you don't feel like you're chasing anything. You don't feel like you have to go overboard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, so yeah, we go to this place, the Painted Duck, and me and you were doing different things, playing bocce ball and basketball and all this stuff. And so, my girlfriend got really mad at me about this story, but so we're walking, to go do a basketball shoot or something. There's like, probably 10 of us or so there, right?
Yeah.
10 to 12. And I'm not the kind of dude that'll break my leg to talk to people. Like, I just don't care. Like I'm cool. Like I want to talk to people. Like that's fine, but I'm not going to go out of my way. So I was just kind of hanging out with you and people that I'm closer with. And not that I'm abrasive or anything like that, but I just, I'll let it happen naturally. Right. So we're walking over and I feel a hand reach over like that. And it's my girlfriend and, at the time. And I look up and I'm like, hello? And she goes, hi, I'm Emily. And I was like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. If
someone's not watching on YouTube, what do you mean? Like she reached over your back or something?
So like we're going, there's a little like ramp. And we're going down the ramp. Yeah. She's behind me, so she's more higher up than me. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Like almost like stairs. Yeah. So I see a hand come over my shoulder like that. And she
You thought
said
it was God.
well, she said that she talks with her hands.
Oh, okay.
Not that she was trying to shake my hand, but I turned around and I shake her hand. I was like, "Hi, I'm Trey. Like, nice to meet you."
Yeah.
And then we go over and she is about to shoot basketball. I was like, "Do you want to shoot the basketball shoot with me?" And because I thought she was cute, and I was like, "Well, I mean, might as well get to know her. She's here with our friends."
Right.
So we started to do the basketball shoot. So it's like 2 goals, and you sit and you just kind of throw. And I'm like taking my time and shooting. She's like shooting real fast. Like, and so I grab her on the shoulder. I'm like, calm down. Like, there's no trophy. So just relax. And then we started talking, and I left there, and 2 of our friends took me home, and I was like, I loved talking to her. So I did what any good gentleman would do, and I messaged her on Instagram.
There you go. What was the first message, if you remember?
So she lives far away from Atlanta, like 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I had the cheesiest thing I ever said. I said, "Did you get any peanuts on your flight back home?"
Oh, wow. That's funny.
And she was like, "Ha ha, no, I made it home." But then I asked her out, and
Okay.
yeah, all happened within a few weeks.
Yeah. Nice, man. So you've been together 2 years or so now?
Almost 2 years to the day, yeah, in a couple weeks ish, give or take.
Yeah. So how have you decided, like, okay, she's who I'm gonna propose to and spend the rest of your life with?
Like, how did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, over the course of 2 years, I've gotten to know her on such a deep level, and understand her quirks and the things that make her who she is, right? And all of that really does boil down to her commitment to Jesus and the way she lives her life. And she does a independent Bible study every day. She listens to a podcast, and that does like a section of the Bible. And she's a big journaler, like loves very type A.
Okay.
So she'll write a few notes on each one, and she has like this book that that she's making with it that has like a symbol that goes along with every single chapter that she's
Wow.
Amazing. I mean, she amazes me. I'm so type B. Like, I'm like, I can't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just knew not long after we were dating, honestly, I knew I was like, I want to be with her. Like, she pushes me to be the best version of myself. She doesn't critique me and judge me for the things I've done, and vice versa, and she's just so kind and patient. And I knew very early on that I wanted to marry her.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. I'm sure that's going to encourage the listeners.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And I'll say again, listen to the voice, man. If something doesn't feel right, it's not. I mean that. Like, I genuinely mean that.
Yeah. Would you say that's your biggest takeaway for everyone listening? Like, someone just sat through this whole podcast here. Okay, awesome story, Trey. Like, thanks for bringing him on, Carlton. I'm gonna go back, to the rest of my life now. What's one thing you want them, to take away from this episode?
I think the main thing I would honestly say is God's love is real. And even though I was just like everybody else, more pragmatic, like thought I was smarter than everybody else. So like whenever I thought about God and things like that, I was like, that's silly.
Right.
You know what I mean? But once you feel it and know him and feel that relationship, there's nothing else like it. The main takeaway I would say is God's love is real. And just because you don't maybe feel it at first, you got to keep at it and you got to keep working on it. And like I said, if you feel like something isn't right, if you're going out and drinking and in the back of your mind, you're like, man, this ain't it. It's not. And that voice is real too. It's all interconnected.
Right. Awesome, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Carlton.
Love you, bro.
I love you too, brother.
Thanks everybody for listening to this week's episode. If this encouraged you, I hope that you'll shoot it to a friend of yours that you think would benefit from hearing Trey's story today. We'll catch you next week for the next episode. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.